Yegusu bomb back to back OSP any Attorney General HSA or back and forth kosono prosecutorial power and one sense abusuya OSP there or say on TRC and ente ase echna eno ene ya project area to your screen no enchen de amamna ne wakwa kopiemu court OSP file stay of execution and notice of appeal against High Court order stripping it of prosecutorial powers and directing AG to take over all pending cases. Abusuya OSP opeso chese ono oye independent or the bonaduma. But the Attorney General so peso chese ono ena obia eshenase. Upon the High Court ruling or the babonting na OSP asanso a file a stay of executioner or they appeal against High Court. Abusuya OSP say ontin wase na omoyetwin Attorney General atwini mu ekosroba forma ono oye independent mom yanko na yanko tie ensem bi nso a ekoso ewo political highway so unsubscribe ya subscribe na hite on a notification bell send be any update be able drop no onso onsa ebetumi aka medamase.
Yes, it's back on Zoom. Let's see if we can engage him on Zoom for a couple of minutes so that he can also express what he feels about it. Lawyer Martin, if you can hear me, thanks for making it back again here on Zoom.
Yeah, okay. I hope it's better now.
Yes, I pray so. Make that first point and then let me make a follow-up on what I want to ask.
So I said this case is a positive development because it's giving us opportunity to discuss all the bad governance issues that Jabe is subjecting Ghanaians to through the Office of Special Prosecutor, right? So that makes it positive because it will take a few months before the Supreme Court to come out with a decision. So in the interim, this High Court decision brings all the issues concerning the Office of Special Prosecutor to the front burner. What am I talking about? Putting it plainly, Kisi Jabe allowed Oforiatta to plead. Oforiatta that everybody knew has questions to answer. Oforiatta that he said that freeing himself said he wanted to arrest but didn't get help. It turned out that he was lying. I'm in receipt of letters, one from National Security, the other from BNI, saying that he didn't come there. Yeah, he had the temerity to sit on TV to say he went to release institutions for help to arrest Oforiatta. He didn't get help. Oh, that's hogwash. So you see that now we are holding him accountable for all the misdeeds, the lies, the betrayal, okay, all the bad things we can talk about. So this is a good opportunity, and by the time we are done, you will see that his position as special prosecutor had always been untenable from day one because of the conflict of interest. I mean, he was put there by Gabi Ochodako, cousin to the president, and Godfred Adame, Attorney General at the time. He was carefully selected so that he would do their bidding. And lo and behold, he's delivered excellently. He botched the Sisi Adapa case and returned the money to Sisi Adapa. And look at Oforiatta's state. And you see, it's surprising that he thought he would walk away freely with this things. Bro, this decision is just a tip of the iceberg. More things to follow. And you would see that it's a wise decision to just resign and leave immediately. You can't take a whole nation to ransom like that.
Lawyer, but you also agree that most of the cases that he has followed, or most of the things that he had actually operated on, were things that had affected this country very much, and he was very bold about pursuing them.
Oh, he said charade. I don't see any boldness. It's a charade. It's a charade. The ones that required boldness, he dictated. The Oforiatta's case is what required boldness. He failed to deliver. Sisi Adapa's tax. Look, money laundering. You see money beyond somebody's salary somebody's business, return that money.
But those cases were investigated, and those who were involved were taken to the right places where they are supposed to be taken to, and they had conclusions on that.
No, we don't have conclusions on Mr. Adapa. If you forgot, let's remind Ghanaians. No. Mr. Adapa's case is the one that initially was about $1 million, then some euros, and then Ghana cedis. They went and searched a house and got about $600,000, more Ghana cedis, etc. Then you go to the bank account, more millions of Ghana cedis in the bank accounts, etc. And yet he said that they didn't find anything around corruption and corruption related. It was deliberate to just allow Adapa to go scot-free. And they went to attempt, he said money laundering, and he returned the money. We kept making noise that, look, Mamiti was the Dampa, Iyoko boss at the time, to send people to go with Kissie Jaben's boys, so that once they are releasing the money, Iyoko will take over. Kissie Jaben, not both of them didn't come out to tell us how they were collaborating, so that Iyoko will take over this money. And he just returned the money to Sister Adapa. Is that how a good steward acts? Is that how a good steward acts? Look, I tell you, many cases, you will see too many politics, favoritism, conflict of interest involving it. Oh, it's an eyesore. It's an eyesore. If we are trying to go into them one by one, you would say we should close down that office immediately. You would say we should close down the office of the special prosecutor immediately. There's no fight against corruption going on there. It's rather a promotion of corruption. What he said is promoting corruption. I don't see a fight.
No, but he said that he's going to actually take this case up. They're not amused about the whole situation at all. What would be the chances for him?
He could win. He could also lose. KMG, the reason is that, you see, when it comes to law, we have different schools of thought. That's the beauty of the law. One thing, somebody sees it as A, others will say B, etc. So he can go on appeal and he can win in the same.
I think we lost our lawyer over there.
Honestly, I really wanted to speak to Martin because you see, he sort of personalized this whole thing. The whole suit is about the office, not about the personality who mans the office. And when you make some of these allegations, it fits into the conversation that it is Kissie's person which has been targeted and not the office itself. I mean, you shouldn't make such. So I think that, Martin, you've been very unfair to Kissie Jaben, and you're attacking his person unnecessarily. The whole idea is the office which is being attacked and not the person that mans the office. So I don't think Martin should have gone on that tangent. As to his competence and all that, we all know Kissie Jaben is a very competent person. If we believe that...
You might believe so. Other person might believe otherwise.
In terms of competence. You see, the point is that we're in this...
Yeah, attacking personalities, that's different.
But a few months ago...
This has been around for a long time.
A few months ago, KMG, there were petitions to the Chief Justice, and what were the outcomes of these petitions in terms of the OSP? They said no case has been made for any issue to be raised against the OSP. So I don't think that when it comes to his person and personal competences, it is something that you should bring along in this kind of conversation. It is the office we are talking about. It is but
people also have the right to speak about his competence based on how they view it.
Yes, of course, definitely. But this particular suit is not about his competence or his personal life.
No, I think he was making a general statement on his tenure in office, and not reference to this particular suit.
Yes, so that is
because Martin Kegu has always made general reference about his competence.
But he's been arrested by the OSP before, and you don't expect him to give fair comments about the OSP. All right.
He's been consistent.
No, you see, so this will be my final comment.
Yeah.
If indeed the president and the current administration are minded to fight corruption, they should not weaken state institutions like the office of the OSP through these suits. Because when you do these things, you expose the office of the OSP to remarks as its incompetence, its youthfulness. And the citizen may lose trust in such a huge institution. what I believe is that the court suits are not necessary. We know what is supposed to be done. All lawyers will tell you that looking at the wording, you can't fault the judgment of the High Court so much. And if you cannot fault the judgment of the High Court so much, we could anticipate and predict what will happen at the Supreme Court. We don't need the Supreme Court, especially when there were attempts in Parliament to have the office scrapped. And the President himself says, oh, it is not important. So we don't need the Supreme Court to go about those declarations and cause mayhem in this country by calling the office as unnecessary and unconstitutional. All that is required, the AG can do it. And if probably they've not adverted their minds to it, some of us are prompting them that all those suits seek to do one thing, give it authorization to work. And nothing stops the President of the day, nothing stops the Attorney General to give the requisite authorization to the Office of the Special Prosecutor to function and function well. The OSP. That is a bit surprising because any agency of state, when has any legal issue, it is rather the Attorney General that goes to its defense. But this particular one, it is actually the Attorney General that is leading the charge, considering its written submission in the matter of the Supreme Court and the recent decision of the High Court. That is quite surprising. And for me, I think that it's my prayer that Nana Addo really lives long to see certain things. You remember, when there were just issues of delay in budgetary allocations and there were logistical challenges, the OSP, through numerous press conferences, said what? Ayakwanuma or the Nekraba for
with the issue of the bulletproof
yes. Just that. He was all over the place saying Ayakwanuma, and now it is the state that is fighting you. So the song you should be singing now is Sansan Kroma Unina Nieja. Because you see, it is quite revealing that clearly the government of the day does not want the OSP office to stand. And I'll tell you the reason. Let me explain to Ghanaians the whole issue about the OSP. And they would understand why it is very clear that it is rather the government of the day, the NDC government led by John Mahama, that does not want the office of the OSP to stand because they don't want to fight corruption. They've been cosmetic about the fight of corruption. What is the issue? So the OSP Act was set to fight corruption and corruption-related issues per their act, the act that established them. But under Article 88, the prosecutorial powers of the state lies with the Attorney General. So what issue is in court? The issues in court are just one. All the two suits, the one that was recently decided by the High Court and the Supreme Court, are saying that the OSP needs some form of authorization from the Attorney General's office to prosecute. So for the OSP's office to have prosecutorial powers, it should be given to it by the Attorney General. That is the issue. That is the issue. And that is the lacuna in the law. That, yes, the Office of the Special Prosecutor could prosecute, it could investigate and prosecute. But before it does so, it should get some level of authorization from the Attorney General. Basically, that is it. So this is the catch. If this government is a government that really has intention to keep the office of the OSP, all these court issues are not necessary. All that it could have done was to give the authorization through an executive instrument, a fiat, or any sort. So all that was needed to be done. This court issue about OSP, it is because he has no authorization. This Supreme Court is because they believe that per the reading of especially Section 4.2 and Article 8.4, the OSP needs a special authorization from the AG and on its own cannot prosecute. It's a valid argument. It's a very fair argument.
Yeah.
But if the government was minded to keep the office of the AG, said, oh, yes, we have seen this lacuna in the law. The previous government, after setting it up, did not give that EI or that level of authorization to prosecute. So, Mr. OSP, since as a government, since as President Mahama's government, we are very much interested in fighting corruption. We will give you the authorization. Case closed. So there
was a simple way out of this.
That is why I want to break it down for Ghanaians to understand and know the mindset of this current administration. They don't want to fight corruption, and they don't want to see the Office of the Special Prosecutor fighting corruption. Because it is so simple. KMG, I set you up, but there's this one last thing I needed to give you. Maybe oversights or inadvertence, I didn't give you. Then people go to court and say that I didn't give you. Then you go to court and say that, yes, it is true, you don't have it. When I could have given it to you. So all that this government should have done, we set up the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Maybe it was inadvertence, maybe it was oversight. But you don't go to court and say that you support what the private citizens are saying. Because the suit the two suits.
Yeah.
Two private citizens went to court. The one that the High Court said, the OSP, they went by a process called co-warranto.
Yeah.
Produce your authority. The OSP should come to court to show court its authority that it uses to prosecute. The Supreme Court one simply also says that per the reading of the OSP Act in conjunction with Article 88(4), the special prosecutor cannot prosecute without powers from the AG. So the two suits are the same, talking about the same thing, no authorization.
It's the same authorization.
It's the same authorization. Then what does the AG does? It writes in its written submission at the Supreme Court, it says yes, it supports the argument of the private citizen that indeed the special prosecutor needs authorization from the. That is the case. And if you are the government and AG, what do you have to do? Give them the authorization.
So give me a moment. I'll come back to you. I have Lawyer Martin Kebo on the other side.
Yes.
Let me speak to him briefly, and then I'll come to you as well, comrade.
Okay. We are winning and some a course so our political highway so OSP versus Attorney General and OSP Coco PM court no and home update any the brand. But I'm asking some penny Coco teaser and some way at my gossip politics TV so madam.